The goal of this project is, given a set of audios from a bass, reproduce them in a trumpet or in a piano. The techniques used to do that will be shown down the line.
To run this project, firstly open your Jupyter file in your interface of choice, and please make sure that in the data folder you have all of these files that are listed here. Then select your Jupyter kernel, and then please run all the cells before you start doing anything. The whole Jupyter file might take a bit to run, but once that is done, you can head to your user area and start changing variables to create your sound. What all the variables mean are explained here, so you can check them out and see what they do. And for example, if you want to change the main sound, you can do it here. Now I want to play TCM bass. And after I make all my alterations, I just run this cell again, and my results are presented. I can also import CSV files, and I can change the BPM, the sample rate, and the instruments in order, as well as input the CSV files here and choose to have vibrato or not. And then I run this cell, and then I have my results. This might take a while due to the CSV files being long, but then all of the sounds are here presented.
Regarding one of our functions, the onset detection is made by using moving averages in order to smooth out and filter the small maxima that are interfering in the onset detection. So after doing and finding our maxima that indeed mark the beginning of a note, we backtrack in order to find the onset and not the peak. Regarding our offset detection, this is done by advancing steps multiple to the beat in order to find the time step at which the sound ends, meaning that the RMS value is low. Or, in the case that the RMS value is never low, the note ends at the beginning of the next one.
To calculate the intensity of each note, the Librosa feature RMS function calculates the RMS for the whole sound, and then later we split that array in all of the onset and offset frames, so we get the RMS for each note. Finally, to detect the frequency, because the chosen sounds will be bass sounds, they are monophonic, so we only need to obtain a fundamental frequency, and to do that we get the short time Fourier transform of the signal, and then we run through them from the onsets to the offsets. And in that interval, we sum all of the short time Fourier transform, and we find its peaks. So we find the maximum peak, and after that we consider all of the previous peaks that have an amplitude of above 60% of that maximum peak. And then we see if those peaks can contain possible fundamental frequencies, of course, considering that here we are going to have a discrete signal, so it might not be exactly the right value, but it is a close one. And we also find a final frequency, but then we check what's the closest frequency to that previous frequency that actually corresponds to a real note. And after that, we get all of our frequencies. There are many standard functions that help us synthesize our sound, such as a wavetable synthesis function or a neat DSR envelope function that shapes our signal according to the instrument. For example, for the piano, we have a rounder shape, and we can also add sounds together.
In order to better emulate a trumpet note, a complex approach was chosen. So this approach involved both frequency modulation regarding the first part of the sound, or if vibrato was chosen, the rest of it. It was also chosen to use a frequency envelope, since this is the normal behavior of a trumpet, and also, of course, the addition of white noise that is shaped according to also a different envelope, and the addition of ADSR envelope for the amplitude.
And finally, we have our polyphonic synthesis function that, according to a composition, creates all of the sounds. For the background determination functions, firstly, the low back composition finds the lowest peaks of frequency and creates a background composition according to that. As for the init beats comp, this function determines firstly the frequency that is playing at the beginning of each bar, and a bar is defined by the user. So the user says how many beats should be in a bar, and at the beginning of each bar, we find its frequency and we create a background according to that. Get harmonic sound function does a similar thing. So it picks the frequency of the beginning of the bar, but instead of using that frequency, it calculates the most harmonic frequency that can be played with that note. Finally, there's a create custom sound function that receives the user inputs and creates the wanted sound.
In order to evaluate the performance of our code, we've run a series of tests. It is noticeable that the F measure used to calculate the onset and offsets, both precision and recall, are rather promising. However, some aspects regarding the calculations of the frequencies and intensities should be bettered. with an additional note that the beat measure, at least differentially, is rather good. Globally, our code is also well performed, assessing a little worse results, but still really nice results.
Finally, some interesting sounds, as well as the assessment for the different background functions, are performed here, and different sounds can be heard and are later analyzed.